Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. It's great to be back with you here on Points of Light Radio and fellowshipping with you as well as my guests. In today's segment of Points of Light Radio, I'm bringing you an excerpt that I took out of an interview I did with a gentleman named Robert Cooper. Now, if you recall, he was here talking about the free gardeners. Right? Mr. Cooper is a historian, author, and Freemason. He's also the former curator of the Masonic Grand Lodge of Scotland. He was also a member of the Free Gardeners, but he was also in a little-known organization called the Incorporation of Hammermen. Right? Now, like I said, I sometimes hear I hear everybody kind of, do a double take when they hear that, because most people have never heard about the Hammermen. And that's the organization that you will hear Mr. Cooper talk about and shed some light on in this particular segment. Now, just to give you some insight, the Hammermen of Glasgow can trace its origins back to 1536. The Incorporation of Hammermen, the Hammermen of Glasgow, sought to regulate the trade in metalworking within the burgh of Glasgow. They also sought to ensure proper standards of training and workmanship, as well as the supporting of their members, widows, and dependents, should they fall on hard times. They embraced many of the different trades in metalworking, such as blacksmith, silversmiths, goldsmiths, lorimers, I'm not sure what those were, cutlers, armorers, sword makers, clock makers, locksmiths, and so on. The Hammermen even fought in battles, including the Battle of Langside in 1568, in Falkirk in 1746, right? I think it's interesting that they trace their origins back to 1536. Isn't that amazing how these organizations, and if you view the segment I did with Mr. Cooper, the previous segment I did with Mr. Cooper, he talks about how some of these different guilds and incorporations and different, these different lodges were formed, right? It's rather fascinating. But as I keep saying, I can't wait to introduce you to this organization. But as I always ask you, are you ready? Are you still hungry for knowledge? Are you still searching for the light? Then how about you just trim your lamp and follow me? Let's go there together, shall we? The Hammermen.
The Hammermen are slightly different. The Hammermen were metal workers. They did everything from creating horseshoes. They were essentially blacksmiths.
Oh,
they
okay.
They would make swords, armor, anything that required metal working. You were a hammerman, and that's exactly because the hammer was the thing that you used to forge red hot metal into the shape that you wanted it to be forged into. The difference is, and this is the difference between Freemasonry and free gardenry, all these other trades had what we called guilds. In Scotland, they were typically called incorporations. Every guild was made up of a particular trade. So the guild or the Incorporation of Hammermen only had hammermen as members. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So when you were admitted as a hammerman, you passed through a ceremony where you were given esoteric secrets and practical knowledge, and that was fine because all the people that were present were all hammermen.
Okay.
The problem for the stonemasons was that the guild or the incorporation of stonemasons also had other people who were not stonemasons in their ranks. So you had people like glaziers, slaters who put roofs on, all perhaps connected with the construction industry, but not strictly speaking stonemasons. So transferring stonemasons' secrets or esoteric knowledge or whatever in the incorporation of stonemasons could not be done because there were other people present who were not stonemasons, and they would learn the stonemason secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the stonemasons and later the gardeners, they came up with an extra organization where only stonemasons were present, and that's what they call the lodge. And that's where the secrets of stonemasonry were transferred from one generation of stonemasons to the next in a stonemason's lodge. All the other trades, like bakers, hammermen, shoemakers, that all that was done within the guild. The stonemasons were different because they had a mixture of different trades in the guild, and so therefore they had to create a special space, an additional organization where that information was transferred, and that was the lodge. Mm-hmm. Same thing went for the gardeners, and almost certainly the gardeners copied what the stonemasons were doing, because in the gardeners' ranks you had not only just people who made nice gardens, but they had farmers, people, foresters, tree surgeons, all that. So you had people who were not genuine gardeners. They might have been connected, but they weren't entirely gardeners. So they too created another branch, another organization, and they called it a lodge, where only gardeners were members, same as the lodge of only stonemasons. Mm-hmm. So, and trying to explain that can get a little bit complicated, but in essence, that's what happened. Yeah.
So that's basically who the Hammermen really are. They're their own little guild type thing.
Yeah, they were a guild, although we know they had their secrets. They all did. They are
still around. I know that, but not very much.
Yeah, oddly enough, just talking about that. There you are.
Yeah.
You see that?
I saw that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a hammerman.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But this too is a revival, like the gardeners. Yeah. Whether this, when I became a member, the secrets, the so-called secrets of the Hammermen, I think have been lost. They're not the same secrets that existed 300 years ago. Some people say that they are, but there's no way of proving it because they were secrets, they were never written down. So what the secrets today, whether they're the same as 300 years ago, nobody can know for sure, whereas we're pretty safe in our knowledge that they are the same for the Freemasons and the Free Gardeners, because we've got continuous written records.
Well, you're going to have to come back on and just talk about the Hammermen one day then. How's that sound?
Yeah, that needs a little bit of research. Unfortunately for them, they disappeared a long time ago.
Yeah.
Again, mechanization did them in as well. I mean, making things by hand, metal things by hand, was very labor intensive. But then, of course, along comes the steam engine and all the steam forge and all that kind of stuff. And so, the individual the numbers decline dramatically. But we
Where
do know.
where do they meet? Do they meet in Masonic lodges? Like some lodges here meet in Masonic lodges just to share the space. It's a lodge, so some different.
Sure. No, certainly the Hammermen that I am I'm a member of, they meet in a private club,
Okay.
not connected to Freemasonry at all.
Okay.
And I can understand why some of these organizations don't want to be associated with so-called secret societies.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That was Robert Cooper, brothers and sisters, shedding some light on the Incorporation of Hammermen. I once again want to ask you, did you ever heard of the Incorporation of Hammermen until today? I personally hadn't until I talked to Robert Cooper. And I think that's one of the many things I really enjoy about bringing you Points of Light Radio is learning more about these organizations that are, like I said, fairly obscure, but they're still out there, right? And I do believe that it would be a shame, given the history, like 1536, this organization's been around since, and we've never heard about it. And I think it would be a shame for an organization like that to die, because it is definitely part of the history of mankind. Let's be blunt. Definitely a part of the history of Scotland. And if we could do anything here, we can raise the profile a little bit, like I said, and preserve some of that history. And I'm not done with the Hammermen. I can promise you that. I'd love to have Mr. Cooper back here to talk specifically about the Hammermen, or have another member of the Hammermen on here to shed some further light on it. But we're definitely not done with this organization. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that's all I do have time for today, brothers and sisters. But before I go, I want to remind you, as always, that Points of Light Radio is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing this podcast on YouTube. You can follow Points of Light Radio on my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. You can see the link to my Twitter handle there at Points of Light Radio. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as the Points of Light Radio store. I also want to point out that Points of Light Radio is available to advertise your fraternal store or event. Get in touch with me via the email address you see on my Facebook page there. But brothers and sisters, it's been a pleasure fellowshipping with you. And until we meet again, just step into the light.